Why is your soulmate ignoring you? This is not a coincidence that you are reading this right now, and this is not just a random explanation to comfort your heart. This is something your soul needed to hear because the silence you are experiencing is not ordinary silence. It is a lesson, a mirror, a test, and a transformation happening behind the scenes. You keep checking your phone wondering why they haven't texted. You replay your last conversations in your head searching for mistakes. You question whether you said too much or not enough. You wonder if their feelings changed overnight, and deep down the fear whispers that maybe you were never enough. But listen carefully, their ignoring is not always about lack of love. Sometimes it is about emotional immaturity, sometimes it is about fear of intensity, sometimes it is about running from something real because real love demands growth and growth is uncomfortable. Your soulmate may be silent not because they don't care, but because they care more than they are ready to handle. Your presence triggers their insecurities, your depth exposes their shallow coping mechanisms, your loyalty confronts their fear of commitment, and instead of communicating that vulnerability, they retreat into distance because distance feels safer than honesty. Understand this: when someone ignores you, it reveals more about their internal battle than your worth, because a person who is secure communicates, but a person who is confused disappears, and your soulmate might be battling past wounds they never healed, trauma they never processed, heartbreak they buried instead of resolved, and when they feel something real with you, those old wounds resurface and they panic. Ignoring becomes their defense mechanism, silence becomes their shield, avoidance becomes their illusion of control, and while you sit there feeling rejected, they are actually overwhelmed. Sometimes they are testing whether you will chase them, because they equate love with pursuit. Sometimes they are creating space to see if their feelings survive absence, and sometimes they are fighting their own ego because admitting how much they miss you would mean surrendering pride. You must also consider that divine timing plays a role. Not every connection aligns at the moment emotions awaken. Sometimes two souls meet before they are fully prepared, and one awakens faster than the other, so the awakened one feels the pull intensely while the other feels pressure. Your soulmate's silence may be the universe slowing the story down, forcing both of you to grow individually before merging again. Because love without stability collapses under its own intensity. Maybe they are ignoring you because they sense you are becoming too dependent on their validation, and life is teaching you to anchor your happiness within yourself, because soulmate connections are not meant to create obsession, they are meant to awaken self-worth. When someone ignores you, it pushes you to confront your own attachment style, your fear of abandonment, your habit of overgiving, your pattern of accepting breadcrumbs instead of clarity, and in that painful space you either shrink or evolve, and evolution is uncomfortable but necessary. Do not mistake silence for destiny ending, but also do not romanticize disrespect as fate, because true soulmate energy never thrives on confusion, it thrives on alignment. If they are ignoring you consistently without explanation, that is not mystery, that is avoidance, and avoidance cannot sustain sacred love. However, sometimes distance is a temporary storm before Clarity. Sometimes your soulmate needs to feel your absence to understand your value. Sometimes they need to lose access to your energy to realize how rare it was, and sometimes they step back because they are trying to build themselves into someone worthy of you. You may not see their internal struggle, but silence does not always equal indifference. Still, your responsibility is not to decode every hidden meaning. Your responsibility is to protect your peace, because chasing someone who is withdrawing drains your power, and soulmate love is not about chasing, it is about mutual effort, if they are meant for you. Communication will return with maturity, accountability will replace confusion, and consistency will replace silence, but if their ignoring continues and you are left begging for clarity, then the lesson was not about union, it was about self-respect. Remember, sometimes your soulmate ignores you because they sense that you are stronger than you believe, and life is pushing you to discover that strength without leaning on them. Sometimes separation is preparation, sometimes silence is redirection, and sometimes the person you thought was your forever is only a chapter meant to awaken you. Do not let their ignoring convince you that you are unlovable, because the right person will not make you question your value daily. The right person will not punish you with silence, the right person will communicate even when it is hard. Until that alignment happens, focus on becoming whole within yourself, because when two whole souls meet, they do not ignore, they build, they communicate, they fight for clarity, they grow together, and they do not disappear when emotions become intense. So if your soulmate is ignoring you right now, see it not just as pain but as revelation, revelation of their readiness, revelation of your attachment patterns, revelation of what you will no longer tolerate, and revelation that love must feel safe, not confusing. Trust that what is truly meant for you will never require you to shrink, beg, or chase endlessly, and if this silence is temporary, clarity will come, but if it is permanent, then destiny is protecting you from loving someone who was not yet capable of loving you the way you deserve. And if you are still here reading this, still feeling that heaviness in your chest, still wondering why their silence feels louder than any argument ever could, then understand this next level of truth. Sometimes your soulmate ignores you because they are standing at a crossroads inside themselves, and you unknowingly represent the path. That requires courage. Loving you would mean change, loving you would mean accountability. Loving you would mean breaking patterns they have repeated for years, and change terrifies people who have grown comfortable inside their chaos. You see, some souls crave deep love but subconsciously sabotage it when it arrives, because healthy love feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels unsafe to a wounded heart. They might scroll through your profile in silence, reread your old messages, think about texting you at 2 a.m., type your name and then delete it, not because they don't care, but because reaching out would force them to confront emotions they are trying to suppress, and while you interpret silence as rejection, they may be interpreting distance as self-protection. But here is where it becomes spiritual. Sometimes the universe allows silence to expose imbalance, because if you were always the one initiating, always the one fixing, always the one understanding, always the one Apologizing first, then their ignoring is revealing a dynamic that was never equal, soulmate. Energy is powerful, but it is not one-sided, it is not built on anxiety, it is not sustained by one person overgiving while the other underdelivers. When someone truly aligns with you, they fear losing you more than they fear expressing vulnerability, so if they are comfortable disappearing without explanation, it means they have not yet understood your value at the level required to keep you, and sometimes the hardest truth is this: they are watching to see if you will tolerate the silence, because people repeat what you allow. If every time they pull away you chase harder, they subconsciously learn that distance increases your effort. But when you step back, when you reclaim your energy, when you choose dignity over desperation, something shifts. Either they feel the absence and awaken, or the connection fades and reveals it was never rooted deeply enough, and both outcomes serve you. You must also consider that your soulmate might be going through a silent transformation. Career pressure, family burdens, financial stress, inner identity crisis, and instead of communicating weakness, they withdraw to handle it alone. Some people were raised to believe vulnerability is weakness, so when life overwhelms them, they isolate instead of leaning in. But here is the key difference: temporary silence with consistent respect is different from emotional neglect. If they communicate, "I need time," that is maturity. If they vanish without clarity, that is avoidance. And you deserve maturity. Do not romanticize breadcrumbs as destiny. Destiny does not confuse you daily. Destiny may test you, but it does not constantly destabilize you. And here is another layer: sometimes your attachment to them is stronger than the reality of who they are. Sometimes you are in love with potential, with who they could be, with who they were in the beginning, with the version of them that made promises. But love must be based on consistent present behavior, not future fantasy. Your soulmate ignoring you might be breaking an illusion you built in your mind, and illusions hurt when they shatter, but they free you, because when you remove the fantasy, you finally see the truth. Are they actually showing up for you, or are you holding on to hope alone? And hope without action becomes self-betrayal. The universe sometimes uses silence to force detachment, because you cannot receive aligned love while clinging to misaligned energy. If someone is meant to walk beside you long-term, they will not risk losing you over ego. Ego blocks communication, pride delays reconciliation, fear prolongs silence. But mature love chooses connection over pride. So if their ego is stronger than their effort, that tells you everything. Now listen closely, because this part is crucial. Your worth does not decrease because someone failed to recognize it. Diamonds remain diamonds even if someone mistakes them for glass. If your soulmate is ignoring you, it does not mean you are too much. It may mean you are too real for someone who is not ready for depth. Depth intimidates the unprepared. Consistency intimidates the inconsistent. Emotional intelligence intimidates the emotionally avoidant, and instead of rising to your level, they retreat. But you are not here to shrink yourself to make someone comfortable. You are here to align with someone who meets you fully, and sometimes silence is the final filter. It removes those who cannot sustain what they started. It exposes who was curious versus who was committed. It separates attraction from intention, and even though it hurts, it clarifies. Pain clarifies faster than comfort ever will. So instead of asking only, "Why are they ignoring me?" also ask, "Why am I tolerating being ignored?" Because the moment you shift that question, you shift your power. When you stop obsessing over their silence and start focusing on your standards, everything changes. You begin to glow differently. You begin to detach gracefully, and detachment is not coldness, it is self-respect. If they return with clarity, growth, and accountability, then the silence was preparation, but if they return with excuses, half-effort, and the same patterns, then the silence was a warning, and if they never return, then the silence was protection. Understand this deeply. What is truly meant for you will require effort from both sides. It will not feel like emotional starvation. It will not leave you questioning your value every night. It will not create constant anxiety. Love may challenge you, but it will not humiliate you. So if your soulmate is ignoring you right now, do not beg for crumbs. Let them feel your absence. Let them experience life without your warmth, your understanding, your presence, and during that time, build yourself, elevate your mind, your body, your confidence, your purpose, because when you level up, two things happen. Either they realize they are losing something rare, or you realize you no longer need what once felt irreplaceable, and both are growth. Silence is not always the end, but it is always information. Read it carefully, protect your dignity fiercely, and trust that the love written for you will never require you to abandon yourself just to keep someone else interested. And now you must hear the part most people avoid because it forces accountability on the soul, not just on the other person. Sometimes your soulmate is ignoring you because the version of you that met them is not the version you are becoming, and growth creates temporary distance between energies that once matched. When two people connect, they meet at a certain emotional frequency, but as time passes, one may start healing faster, awakening faster, demanding more clarity, desiring more stability, and when that happens, the one who is still comfortable in inconsistency begins to feel exposed. Your standards silently rise, your tolerance for confusion decreases, your intuition becomes sharper, and suddenly the dynamic that once felt intoxicating begins to feel draining. They sense this shift even if you never announce it, and instead of adjusting upward, they step backward, because leveling up requires humility, and humility requires admitting, "I need to do better." Not everyone is ready for that mirror. Sometimes your presence becomes that mirror. You reflect back to them what they lack: discipline, emotional depth, long-term vision, courage to commit. And instead of thanking the reflection, they avoid it. Ignoring you becomes easier than evolving for you. And this is where you must understand divine orchestration. Not every intense connection is meant to end in union. Some are meant to activate transformation. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to trigger your awakening. They awaken your desire for deeper love, higher standards, emotional security, and once that awakening begins, the old dynamic can no longer survive. Their silence may not be punishment, it may be separation between two timelines that no longer align, and when timelines separate, it feels like rejection, but spiritually it is redirection. You are being redirected toward a love that matches who you are becoming, not who you were when you first settled. And here is another truth most don't say out loud: sometimes your soulmate ignores you because they know they cannot give you what you deserve right now, and instead of admitting inadequacy, they choose disappearance. Pride whispers, if I can't show up fully, I won't show up at all. But mature love says, I am not perfect yet, but I am willing to grow with you, so their silence reveals their maturity level, and you must stop translating their immaturity into your unworthiness. Your value is constant, their readiness fluctuates. Do not confuse the two, and if you are honest with yourself, there were moments when your intuition warned you, small inconsistencies, delayed replies that felt intentional, affection that came in waves instead of consistency, promises that sounded beautiful but lacked follow-through, but because the connection felt intense, you overlooked the red flags. Intensity can mimic destiny, chemistry can mimic compatibility, but compatibility is proven through consistency, not passion alone. And when someone ignores you repeatedly, they are showing you their capacity. Believe patterns, not potential. Believe effort, not excuses. Believe consistency, not temporary emotion, because real soulmate alignment does not rely on guessing games, it thrives on transparency. And let us go deeper. Sometimes you are being emotionally detoxed, yes. Detoxed, because attachment can become addictive. The dopamine of their texts, the anticipation of their calls, the thrill of uncertainty, your nervous system gets hooked on the unpredictability, and when silence suddenly replaces stimulation, your body panics. You interpret withdrawal symptoms as heartbreak, but sometimes it is simply your system recalibrating. You are learning to self-regulate instead of relying on their attention for emotional stability. This is growth disguised as pain, and growth rarely feels gentle. It stretches you beyond comfort. It forces you to sit with yourself. It makes you confront why you tolerated inconsistency in the first place, and maybe the real reason this silence hurts so much is because you invested hope that this time it would be different, hope that this person would finally choose you clearly, hope that your loyalty would be reciprocated, but hope must be balanced with discernment. Love requires openness, yes, but it also requires boundaries. If someone can go days or weeks ignoring you without feeling urgency to reconnect, that is data, and data should guide decisions. You are not asking for too much by wanting communication. You are not needy for desiring reassurance. You are not dramatic for expecting consistency. Those are basic requirements of secure love, and if someone labels your needs as too much, it is usually because they are offering too little. Now here is the empowering shift. Silence gives you space to reclaim yourself. When they step back, you step inward. You reconnect with your ambitions, your friendships, your purpose, your spirituality, your health. You realize your world does not revolve around one person's attention, and as you expand, something fascinating happens. Your energy becomes less Attached and more magnetic, detachment creates clarity, clarity attracts alignment. When you stop chasing, you create room, and what is meant to stay will step forward without being dragged. If they are truly your soulmate in the long-term sense, this distance will refine both of you and bring you back stronger, with better communication, deeper appreciation, and mutual effort. But if they are only a karmic lesson, the silence will slowly dissolve the attachment until you no longer feel the same urgency, and one day you will wake up and realize you haven't checked your phone first thing in the morning, you haven't replayed old conversations, you haven't felt that tightness in your chest. That is healing, that is release. That is power returning to you, and whether they come back or not, you win, because you no longer define your worth through someone's responsiveness, you define it through your standards. So instead of fearing their silence, observe it. Instead of chasing clarity from them, create clarity within yourself. Ask, does this connection bring peace or anxiety? Does it feel mutual or imbalanced? Does it inspire growth or insecurity? Your answers are the compass. And remember, the right love will never require you to audition for commitment. It will not test your patience endlessly. It will not disappear to see if you care. It will communicate, reassure, and build. So if your soulmate is ignoring you right now, let silence do its job. Let it reveal, refine, and redirect, and trust that what truly aligns with your highest self will never be sustained through confusion, only through conscious, consistent choice. And now we reach the layer most people are afraid to confront, because it shifts the focus completely. What if their silence is not a mystery to decode, but a mirror to accept? What if the reason your soulmate is ignoring you is not hidden in their phone, their ego, or their fear, but in a cycle that both of you unconsciously created? Because every connection is co-created, every dynamic is reinforced by repeated behavior, and sometimes ignoring becomes a pattern. When communication was never clearly defined from the start, think back carefully. Were there moments when you felt unsure but stayed quiet, moments when you accepted less because you feared losing them, moments when you overextended emotionally just to maintain closeness? When you abandon your own boundaries slowly, people adapt to that version of you. They begin to assume you will always understand, always wait, always forgive. And when someone believes you will never truly walk away, they feel less urgency to show up fully. This is not about blaming yourself, this is about reclaiming awareness. Because awareness is power. Your soulmate might be ignoring you because, somewhere along the way, emotional effort became unbalanced. You gave reassurance freely while secretly hoping for the same in return. You prioritized their mood while suppressing your own needs. You made space for their inconsistencies while shrinking your standards. And when imbalance goes unaddressed, distance eventually follows. Silence becomes the language of what was never communicated directly. And here is the deeper spiritual truth. Sometimes the universe removes someone's attention to break your emotional dependency. Attention can feel like oxygen when you attach deeply, and when that oxygen is suddenly reduced, panic sets in. But panic is often the first stage of detachment, detachment is not loss, it is liberation. It is the process of remembering that your identity is not tied to someone's response time. You existed before their messages and you will continue long after their silence, and maybe this phase is preparing you for a love that requires strength, not anxiety. Because soulmate love, real aligned soulmate love, demands emotional independence first. Two incomplete people searching for validation cannot build something stable, but two whole individuals choosing each other consciously can. So if this silence is teaching you how to self-soothe, how to focus on your purpose, how to redirect energy into your growth, then it is not punishment, it is preparation. And let's talk about ego again, because ego hides in silence more than we realize. Sometimes they ignore you because reaching out would mean admitting they were wrong, admitting they hurt you, admitting they mishandled something precious. Pride resists vulnerability. Pride says, if I stay quiet, I stay in control, but control is not connection. Control is fear wearing confidence as a mask, and when someone values control over connection, they are not yet operating from mature love. Mature love prioritizes repair over pride. So observe, are they choosing ego, or are they choosing growth? Because that answer will tell you whether this connection has a future or only a lesson. And here is another layer, timing. Timing is often underestimated. Two souls can care deeply yet still be out of sync. One may be ready for commitment while the other is still exploring identity. One may desire stability while the other fears responsibility. Love without synchronized timing creates friction, and sometimes silence is the pause between misaligned seasons. If your seasons no longer match, forcing communication will not create harmony. Harmony comes when both are ready simultaneously, and you cannot force readiness. Readiness is earned through self-work. Now consider this. What if your soulmate is ignoring you because they sense you are outgrowing them? Growth changes energy. When you start valuing peace over drama, clarity over chaos, commitment over confusion, people who thrived in ambiguity feel uncomfortable. Your evolution silently challenges them, and not everyone grows at the same pace. Some choose comfort over change, so they withdraw instead of rising. But your growth should never be paused to maintain a connection. The right person will evolve with you, not away from you, and this is where detachment becomes sacred. Sacred detachment means loving without clinging, caring without collapsing, hoping without losing yourself. It means saying, I desire you, but I do not depend on you. That energy shifts everything, because when you detach from outcome, you regain emotional balance. You stop obsessing over their last scene, their social media activity, their delayed responses. You stop interpreting every silence as a verdict on your worth, and in that calmness, clarity emerges. You begin to see whether they truly add value to your life or whether you were addicted to potential. Potential is seductive, it whispers promises of what could be, but love must be measured by what is happening consistently right now. Are they communicating? Are they showing up? Are they investing? If the answer is silence, Then silence is your information. Do not argue with information, learn from it, and here is the empowering truth: you cannot lose what is meant for you, if someone is destined to walk beside you long term. Temporary distance will not erase that alignment, but if someone fades because you stopped chasing, then their presence depended on your pursuit, not on genuine reciprocity, and reciprocity is non-negotiable in soulmate connections. You deserve effort that matches yours, communication that reassures you, presence that feels intentional. And if ignoring becomes a recurring theme, then perhaps the lesson is about standards. Standards are not ultimatums, they are self-respect in action. When you raise them quietly, people either rise to meet them or remove themselves. Both outcomes clear your path, and one day you will look back at this period of silence not as abandonment but as awakening. You will see how it forced you to confront your fears of being alone, how it strengthened your independence, how it clarified what you truly want in love, and maybe, just maybe, the real soulmate was not the person who ignored you, but the stronger version of yourself that emerged because of it, because sometimes the greatest love story begins not when someone chooses you, but when you finally choose yourself, and once you do, any connection that re-enters your life must align with that upgraded version. No more chasing, no more guessing, no more tolerating emotional absence, only mutual effort, mutual respect, mutual growth. So if they are silent right now, let them be. Silence speaks, it reveals character, readiness, intention, and while they are quiet, you become louder in purpose, louder in self-worth, louder in clarity, and that transformation is something no one can ignore forever. And now we step into the final awakening layer, the one that separates attachment from destiny, illusion from alignment, fear from faith, because at some point you have to stop asking why they are ignoring you and start asking what this silence is shaping inside you. Silence is not empty, it is formative, it molds you quietly, it rebuilds your emotional muscles, it strengthens the parts of you that were depending too heavily on someone else's presence. When your soulmate ignores you, the first reaction is pain, the second is confusion, the third is overthinking, but the fourth, if you allow it, is transformation. Because prolonged silence forces reflection, and reflection reveals truths you were too distracted to see before. Maybe you ignored your own intuition when it whispered that something felt off. Maybe you tolerated mixed signals because you were afraid of starting over. Maybe you convinced yourself that potential was enough even when consistency was missing, and now their silence is exposing everything clearly. Clarity often arrives dressed as loss, but loss is not always subtraction, sometimes it is purification. When someone withdraws, they create space, and space can either be filled with anxiety or growth. The choice is yours. If you fill it with anxiety, you shrink, you obsess, you replay memories. But if you fill it with growth, you expand, you level up, you detach, and detachment is powerful because it breaks emotional dependency. Dependency makes you believe that their attention equals your worth, but your worth existed long before their first message. Your value is intrinsic, not conditional, and the moment you internalize that, something shifts energetically. You stop chasing explanations, you stop stalking their online status, you stop crafting imaginary conversations in your head, you begin to redirect that mental energy into your own. Elevation, and elevation is magnetic. When you become focused on your purpose, your health, your mindset, your ambition, you radiate a different frequency. That frequency either draws them back transformed or repels them permanently, and both outcomes are alignment. Understand this deeply. If someone can ignore you for long periods without urgency to reconnect, they are revealing their emotional capacity. Emotional capacity determines relationship sustainability. Love without capacity collapses under pressure, and soulmate connections are not sustained by intensity alone, they require resilience, communication, and emotional courage. If your soulmate lacks those right now, their silence is simply honesty without words. Actions are always louder than declarations, and silence is an action. But here is where it becomes empowering. Their silence does not define the end of your love story, it defines the end of illusion that you must work harder to be chosen, illusion that patience will convert inconsistency into commitment, illusion that you must prove your worth repeatedly. True alignment requires no audition. You are not here to compete for affection, you are here to align with someone who recognizes your value instinctively, and if someone needs to lose access to you to understand your importance, then that lesson belongs to them, not you. Your lesson is different. Your lesson is about self-trust. Self-trust means believing your feelings when something feels misaligned. It means respecting your standards even when loneliness tempts compromise. It means walking away from confusion even when your heart hopes for clarity. And yes, walking away energetically is painful, but pain is temporary, self-respect is permanent, and once you anchor yourself in self-respect, you stop negotiating your needs. You realize communication is not too much to ask, reassurance is not weakness, consistency is not luxury, it is baseline, and if someone cannot meet baseline requirements, they are not aligned with your future. And here is another profound layer. Sometimes the silence is divine protection. You may not see what could have unfolded had the connection continued prematurely. Maybe deeper attachment would have created deeper heartbreak. Maybe commitment without maturity would have led to chaos. Sometimes separation prevents damage you cannot yet foresee. Trust that unseen protection is still protection, and while they are silent, you are being repositioned. Repositioned emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You are being aligned with a version of yourself that does not chase, does not beg, does not shrink. You are becoming someone who attracts intentional love, and intentional love is calm, not chaotic. It is clear, not confusing. It is consistent, not conditional. If they return, they must return differently. They must return with accountability, growth, vulnerability. Otherwise their reappearance is only repetition, and repetition without evolution is regression. You are not meant to regress. You are meant to rise, and rising requires releasing what weighs you down. Sometimes the weight is not the person, but the expectation, expectation that they will change without evidence, expectation. That silence means secret love, expectation that destiny overrides behavior, but destiny never contradicts character. Character reveals destiny, if their character shows avoidance, inconsistency, emotional unavailability. Believe it, do not romanticize potential over pattern. Patterns predict future, and your future deserves stability. Now imagine a version of you 6 months from now, stronger, calmer, focused, radiant. Would that version tolerate being ignored repeatedly? No, that version would demand reciprocity naturally, so become that version now, step into that energy now, because the sooner you embody your future self, the sooner your reality aligns with it. And here is the ultimate truth: soulmate connections are not about possession, they are about evolution. If someone evolves with you, they stay. If they evolve away from you, they leave. But either way, growth occurs, and growth is the real destiny. So stop measuring this chapter by whether they text back, measure it by how much you have matured, measure it by how much stronger your boundaries have become. Measure it by how much more you value your peace, because peace is priceless, no love is worth sacrificing inner stability, and the right love will enhance your peace, not disturb it. So if your soulmate is ignoring you, breathe, let the silence settle, let it teach, let it refine, do not rush to fill it. What is truly meant for you will step forward without being chased, and if they do not step forward, then the silence has already answered your question. You are not being rejected, you are being redirected toward a love that mirrors your depth, matches your effort, and honors your worth without hesitation. And when that love arrives, you will look back at this period not with bitterness, but with gratitude, because the silence that once hurt you was the same silence that shaped you into someone who would never again settle for less than mutual, intentional, unwavering love. And now this is the last truth you need to hear, the one that closes the circle completely. If your soulmate is ignoring you, it is not happening to break you, it is happening to reveal you, reveal your strength, reveal your patterns, reveal your standards, reveal the depth of love you carry and whether you are giving it to someone who can truly hold it, because love is not just about feeling deeply, it is about being met deeply. And when someone ignores you consistently, they are showing you the size of the emotional container they possess. If your heart is an ocean and theirs is a cup, no matter how pure your intentions are, the overflow will drown the connection. And instead of blaming the ocean for being too vast, you must recognize that not every soul has the capacity to receive what you offer. This is not arrogance, this is awareness. You are not too much, you are simply expansive, and expansive energy requires equal expansion to be sustained. If they shrink from your depth, it does not mean your depth is wrong, it means they are not ready to swim. And sometimes the most painful lesson is accepting that readiness cannot be forced. You cannot inspire someone into maturity, you cannot love someone into courage. You cannot remain loyal enough to compensate for their inconsistency. Growth is a personal decision, and if they choose avoidance over evolution, silence over communication, pride over vulnerability, that is their path. But your path is different. Your path is about rising beyond attachment to outcome, because attachment makes you beg the universe for a specific person, while alignment asks the universe for the right energy, and those are not always the same. Sometimes the person you want is not the person you need. Sometimes the silence you fear is the doorway to the stability you deserve. Think about how much mental energy you have invested trying to decode their absence, the late night overthinking, the imaginary conversations, the hope that tomorrow will be different. Now, imagine redirecting that same energy into building your confidence, your health, your vision, your discipline. Imagine how unstoppable you become when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. That shift is powerful, because when you choose yourself fully, your standards solidify naturally. You no longer accept half-effort disguised as mystery. You no longer romanticize emotional unavailability. You no longer chase closure from someone who is comfortable giving confusion. Instead, you embody closure. You become the ending and the beginning. And here is the final awakening. Silence is not always a sign that love is gone. Sometimes it is a test of alignment. If they return transformed, accountable, clear, and consistent, then the silence was a refining fire. But if they return the same, vague, avoidant, inconsistent, then the silence was exposure. Exposure of incompatibility, exposure of imbalance, exposure of illusion, and exposure is a gift, even when it stings. Because clarity prevents future heartbreak, you deserve a love that does not make you question your place daily. You deserve communication that feels intentional, not accidental. You deserve reassurance without begging. You deserve effort without manipulation, and the right soulmate, the true aligned one, will never make you feel like an option. They will move with certainty. They will protect the connection. They will value your presence openly. Soulmate energy is not chaotic. It is calm. It does not thrive on anxiety. It thrives on mutual growth. So if someone's silence is creating constant instability inside you, that instability is information. Listen to it. Your nervous system recognizes misalignment before your heart accepts it, and the more you honor that inner voice, the more you protect your future. Because protecting your peace is not losing love, it is preparing for real love, and real love feels safe, it feels reciprocal, it feels grounded, it does not disappear when emotions intensify, it communicates through discomfort, it repairs when mistakes happen, it chooses connection over ego. So if your soulmate is ignoring you right now, let this be the final shift. Stop interpreting silence as your failure. Interpret it as feedback, feedback about capacity, about timing, about compatibility, and use that feedback wisely. Elevate, refine, strengthen. Detach with dignity, because the moment you stop chasing someone who is comfortable losing you, you align yourself with someone who is afraid to, and that difference changes everything. One day you will look back at this phase and realize it was the turning point. The moment you stopped begging for attention and started embodying value, the moment you stopped fearing loneliness and started embracing independence, the moment you understood that destiny does not require desperation, destiny requires readiness, and you are becoming ready, ready for a connection that matches your depth, your loyalty, your intensity, your vision, ready for a love that does not hide in silence but stands in clarity, ready for partnership instead of pursuit, and when that love arrives, you will not have to question it. You will not have to decode it, you will not have to chase it, it will meet you halfway. Consistently, confidently, consciously, and until that moment comes, remember this final truth. You are not being ignored because you are unworthy, you are being refined because you are valuable, and anything that cannot recognize that value is not losing you, it is releasing you to something greater.